On your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Yeah, power to the collective, in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice in control.
Yeah, trying to find the right path sometimes is a struggle. A jigsaw in the dark, missing pieces, unknown puzzle. Blurry fuzzy pictures as the mind becomes clear. Fairy tale of a wolf, a boy crying, a near fear. Scribbling numbers, writing notes, a clue that you find. The hope being one day sharing them with the hive mind. Swapping and dropping the blue and swallowing the red pill. NPCs all around, distorted reality is how you still feel. Should you risk going alone down that rabbit hole, or ask the hive mind, see what else your big brother stole? Collective consciousness helps uncover any clue. Powerful ideas shared amongst the whole crew. And the best thing about it, transaction cost is free. Plop just a drop of water, more splash in a tsunami.
Your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Yeah, power to the collective, in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice in control.
That single ripple echoes, a signal in the sea. Unlocking every deadbolt, we forge a master key. They built the maze to break us, to keep us all apart. But every node connected is a brand new place to start. So dump your data stream here, your theories and your doubt. Let the pattern sniffers work, the hidden logic out. From a million different angles, we analyze the code. Lighten up the burden and we share the heavy load. The picture gets clearer, the static starts to fade. A brand new foundation by the collective has been laid.
On your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Yeah, power to the collective, in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice in control.
The picture gets clearer, the static starts to fade. A brand new foundation by the collective has been laid. So let them call you crazy with your tinfoil hat. It's a necessary filter for the mindless chit-chat. They broadcast their agenda, selling lie after lie, while drawing strange new patterns in a crisscross sky. But that hat ain't for hiding, it's an antenna now you see. Tuned into the frequency of the minds that wanna be free. The frantic search for answers you once did all alone is now a data packet uploaded from your phone. So polish up your helmet, there's no need to ever doubt. We're the ones who see the signal when the rest have tuned it out.
On your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Yeah, power to the collective, in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice in control.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah.
What is going on, Hive? I hope everybody had a great weekend. And they're relaxing on this Sunday evening. Sit back, put your feet up, get your tinfoil hats out. And the theme of this evening's stream is a bunch of clowns doing mental gymnastics with the evidence of the Idaho 4. And it's quite simple because this is the moment you realize your entire case is based on a dog barking and a DoorDash. It's remarkable, isn't it? One of the highest profile murders in recent history with some of the craziest media attention you've ever seen. And the answers are not laid out crystal clearly. All of the resources that these media companies have, not one of them is able to piece it together in a coherent manner with evidence, not narrative. I should say, rather, they only can piece it together using the narrative, not evidence. But anyways, I digress. Let's see who's all tuning in. What's going on, Lisa? UFO dog, what's Gucci? What's up, Fiona? Thank you, Tara. I appreciate that. Chrissy says the Hive would have caught Ted Bundy sooner. What's good, Chantilly Lace with the resting biatch face? Aaron, how are you doing? Truth Seeker. Woman Power. The fair was fun. I didn't have a cream puff, though. I just had a couple beers. What's up, Luna? D Smalls. Belinda, I'm doing well. Hope you are as well. Jay Gamble, what's up? Dawn. Heatherly. Thank you, Claire. We did. We got Luna tuning in from New Zealand. River Bear Teacups, Albuquerque. Karen's in the UK. Yo, what's going on? HVAC Works. Whitney Ray is new in here. She says, hi, all. Well, welcome, Whitney. Welcome to the Hive. What's going on? Mercedes and Robin. Terry, what's up? Ipso facto says tinfoil hat firmly on and feet up. Love it. What's going on? Tuning in from Texas, East Tennessee. I see Phoenix is here. And Phoenix, the link is coming via email now. Oh, I just saw your email. Whoops. And where's everybody else tuning in from? Let's see. We got Kansas City, Connecticut. I love it. I love it. Kansas City again. Scotland. In the RV. Michigan. Kansas City. Canada. North Carolina. Happy birthday, Jody. Woo. Thanks for tuning in and appreciate you spending it with us. Texas. Another UK. New York. Copenhagen, Denmark. Oddly enough, I just saw a commercial for Copenhagen, Denmark for tourism, that it's like the best kept secret. Sherlock's tuning in from the hospital. I hope everything's all right, brother. Northern California, the Worldwide Hive is right. Amanda B's in West Virginia. Boise, Florida, Texas, Missouri, Nevada, Northern California, Maryland, Pennsylvania. Chilling in the hot tub. Can I get a hot tub? If you guys remember those commercials. What was that? Like State Farm commercials or something? Bianca's in the Hive down under. Robin's out in Pennsylvania. Another Pennsylvania, Minnesota. Another Hive down under. Ohio. And the UFO dog. Great one to finish on. Still in the basement as usual. And Phoenix is backstage. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to bring her up right away, and then we're going to get into this evening's theme. Phoenix, how are you doing?
I am amazing. How are you, Birdie? What's the wordy?
Oh, had a great weekend. A little bit of, not like long nights, like long enough, though, to feel it the next day. Just a little bit where you can power through it. So I'm excited to have a few days here of recovering during the week and not being out and listening to a bunch of loud music and drinking at the fair. Not that it wasn't fun, but how about you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're getting old.
Dude, I turned 25, and I swear to God, overnight, I had a hangover, or if I drank, I'd get like a 3-day hangover. Like it was overnight. I used to be able to that's some of my best workouts in college. Like after a night out with the boys in the morning, I'm like, I don't even know how I would do that. You couldn't pay me to do that today.
Hey, Hivers. Hey, chat. Yeah, no, that picture. I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, I talked about evidence today.
Mhm.
You're not going to believe what I learned.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to hear it. And I put that quote at the bottom, Phoenix, because although yes, it's kind of a meme as a photo, there's truth to that. If you think about it,
Hmm.
a dog barking in a neighborhood with minimal security cameras, like that have been released. You can't see the dog on the camera, so you're just going to assume that it's Murphy. We can say, "Oh, that is Murphy. It's confirmed that it is," and whatever. But what I'm trying to say is, like, think about prior to the confirmation, and you're listening that it's like the dog barked, but then it's like, well, why wasn't the dog going crazy? Well, why isn't the dog covered in blood? It's like then you got the DoorDash that anchors down the timeline. It's literally mental gymnastics to get
It
to the
is.
conclusion.
It
So
is. Sadly, it is because you can't prove it was obviously Murphy, and you can't prove that there was DoorDash if they're not sharing the footage. Don't you think the gag order was lifted? He pled guilty. Don't you think they would release it by now? Don't you think they would tell us and show us?
yeah, that would just be too easy, Phoenix. It really would be.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start this stream with a quick announcement. I had posted this, but I wanted to read this on air so it makes it into the video as well. And I posted this. It's been a while since I've done this, but I think it's timely. So, what I said is we've had a few people confused about what the Hive in this stream actually does. So, I want to clear it up. For anyone new here, firstly, welcome to the Hive Mind. Truly believe this is the best live stream chat on the internet, and it's because of all of you who are here and tuning in every night. I go live at 7 p.m. Central each weeknight and on Sunday nights. This is a conspiracy theory based, contrarian thinking, community sourced stream. Every stream, as you just saw, is built around a theory or a theme. We then will go into the Hive Mind Finds, which is submissions from this community that might connect dots, challenge timelines, or raise new questions. I read them live. I react in real time. You see what I see. My screen is up the entire time. I'm very transparent about like, this is using ChatGPT, or here's the article, or here's the video. This is the creator. Every article, clip, document I pull is publicly available in the news. Court records are already circulating. I do not dox. I do not fabricate. I don't claim something is a fact unless it's already exists as a fact in public domain. I'm also very, very transparent about that this is a theory or somebody had sent this to me. And the only thing I'm doing, or what I will do, what my guests will do, what the chat will do, is ask why don't these stories and why don't these things line up? And then I give a theory, which is backed by looking at the evidence through a different lens, pattern recognition, and believe it or not, the freedom to think out loud. You don't have to like it, but if you don't understand the point of the show and your first instinct is to get rattled or offended on behalf of others every time we think past the mainstream NPC headlines, then yeah, this stream's probably not for you. But don't twist that into disrespecting grieving families while documentaries, podcasts, and entire networks make millions speculating the exact same way. And if theories trigger you, that's fine, but don't confuse critical thinking and asking questions with disrespect. If you were to actually watch the full streams and not just a 15-second sound clip with no video attached to it, you'd know it. But I get it. It's easier to judge without context than to engage with nuance. So if you're going to critique the Hive in the stream, at least be honest about what it is, which is a conspiracy theory-based, contrarian thinking community source stream. Because misrepresenting someone's work just to score outrage points, it's not protecting anyone. It's performative. And if you're hoping that I'm going to call out another creator or jump into some drama, you're going to be disappointed. So run along, NPCs, scram. Now, we got some work to do, Hive, so let's get right back into it. As a reminder, the Hive Mind merch is on birdiebombshell.com. I have a Substack and a Discord link as well as my TikTok in my YouTube bio. So click subscribe, click more, scroll down. You will see them all down here. Now, the Discord, how about said the NPC question of the day? What the hell is wrong with me? I just got that would
Dana
have been
Rose.
hilarious. Yeah. Dana Rose with the Discord question of the day. I thought this was an interesting question because they asked, what was your damn, I'm pretty good at this moment. And I don't know if they're referring to the streaming thing or if they're referring to like connecting the dots. But I would say there's been multiple moments in my life where I'll be, talking around a bonfire or, with my buddies just randomly like at the bar. And as I start to talk through a theory, be like, oh, have you ever heard this? Or have you heard that? Or like, no, dude, I've realized that I am good at being able to look into things and piece together what I read, who it came from, what's the narrative around it, and then what's like the mainstream narrative. And then I give my opinion on it. And I feel like I've been able to do that where I look through all these different lenses in everyday life that it's allowed me to connect dots on, I guess we would call like unsolved mysteries or conspiracies. So I don't know when it's going to happen whenever I get in those moods. I mean, there's times where I could just tell, like if there's a group of like 4 people and like 3 of them are really into it, I could just tell sometimes that one person that's just unfortunately gotten roped into now listening to me blow their doors off about how, Jeffrey Epstein was probably a, intelligence operation to blackmail the most powerful people in the world and the highest officials in the world to get leverage on them and make sure that they don't do anything they're not supposed to because they're now on camera with underage children on an island. That's what I think. And then it's just like, wait, if you've never heard that, it's like, but anyways, how about you, Phoenix? And ADHD when I have that. So,
I yeah, a little bit of everything.
yep.
I guess when I hear something that right with me, I have to look at it, and sometimes I'll get so freaking consumed until it makes sense. And then I'll say, damn, that was pretty good. Not that pretty good at it, just that was pretty good moment. I had one today, which was pretty crazy, but it was chain of custody and evidence. So that was pretty amazing.
Nice. Okay. Hive. I'm going to move on to the Hive Mind finds here. And this is a deep one again. I thought it was fitting for today because of just the general gist of like, while you're looking into a murder case and there's always this whole thing of everybody grieves differently. Everybody has this, everybody has that. It's like, right, we're understanding that. There's also a lot of people that tune into these streams that have unfortunately been in this situation and they agree with the perspective that this isn't lining up. And so don't just take it from me, take it from people who are members of the Hive like Jeff yesterday and this evening from another person. And it's a little bit longer, but man, buckle up. Like I said, this is deep and this is, like I said, the Hive is better because of people who share these experiences that can relate to real topics and real conversation around this case. So this person says, hi, Birdie. Love being a part of the Hive. I'm a mother to a murdered son, so I feel like I'm able to speak on the reactions of the parents. My son, John, and his best friend were murdered 800 feet from our home at a park in the Lake neighborhood we lived in. This happened July 21st, 2022 in Shelbyville, Georgia. Their names are John Pendrak, who was 17, and Aiden Reynolds, who was 18, in case you want to look it up. Anyway, the Idaho 4 happened 4 months after my son's murder. So maybe that's why I've been so interested in this case. When I gave my victim impact statement, it was after I had sat through a trial where I heard all the details, and knowing the details was something I had to know because I wanted to make sure the suspect was truly guilty. He was a complete stranger to my son, John, and Aiden only knew him because he saved this kid from drowning in the lake on the 4th of July. So yeah, he saved him from dying. And just a couple weeks later, the same kid set my boys up to rob and kill them, shooting my son 9 times in the back and Aiden 5 times, one being point blank to the back of the head. And again, I'm sorry that there's gruesome details in here, but like I said, it was a heavy one. I say all of this to show I have every reason to be angry at this killer. When I gave my statement, I was told I could not get up there and attack the defendant who was found guilty on all counts, but I didn't want to do that anyway. What I wanted was to let the judge know who John and Aiden were and how much they are loved and missed and should still be here. I think this is what every parent that loses a child wants, and that's to talk about their child, say their name, and just know they're not forgotten. I just couldn't believe what I heard from these parents and family at the plea hearing of Bryan Kohberger. I really felt embarrassed for them. I know we all handle grief differently, but they really didn't say one thing about their child they lost. It was all directed at Bryan. This was so odd, in my opinion. Also, Dylan, with all her crying and carrying on, I noticed one thing, and I think it is very important and telling, and that is she could not say any of their names. She just said them and they. To me, this points to feeling guilty for some reason that you cannot say their names. This is my opinion, of course, but in the past 3 years, I've been around and spoke with many other parents who have lost their children and other family members as well, and none of them have had the same reactions as these parents did at the plea hearings. Something is not right with this whole thing. I don't understand why more people are not outraged by this kind of shit. It could happen to anybody. Anyway, sorry this message has been long. I just wanted to tell you I love the show and keep up the good work. By the way, they did give the boy's killer, his name is Laquan Dempsey, he was 16 at the time, life without the possibility of parole. He had an accomplice that was never arrested or even questioned. So yeah, there's that. Our son's story will be an episode on the first 48. They are working on it now, and they had to wait till the suspect was 18. I will let you know when it's aired. I also am forwarding a video I made for them because, like I said, I don't want them to be forgotten. They were very special people. Thanks. So I actually put this video in here.
Oh my goodness.
See you all the time, but it's only in my head. I pick out the scars cause it's getting up. Now life is too. I'm holding on to grief cause it feels so cold.
Man, yeah. So it's just, again, there are people in the Hive that make the Hive a better place and a better chat and a better stream because they're able to share this perspective. So thank you to everybody who has sent a Hive Mind Find. birdiebombshell00@gmail.com is how you would submit that. So these comments too, I mean, it's crazy. And man, I don't know why the last 2 streams I felt compelled to share those stories, but when I read them, Phoenix, it just hits me. It's just like, it's crazy that people feel comfortable enough to share that. And I feel like it should get the showing to the Hive that it deserves.
Absolutely. I'm over here bawling.
I know.
Rest in
I got
peace,
lump
John
in
and
my throat.
Aiden. I can't even imagine gone way too soon. Way too soon.
Yeah. And so now back to talking about the Moscow Police Department and the FBI, how what kind of triggered this theory was that Steve G called Ashley Banfield and said that the FBI had a completely separate investigation, that the Moscow PD was not privy to that information. Well, this goes back. This is an article from March 29th of 2023. And if you like Google this headline, there's a lot of articles that will pop up about it. So I have one that I have. Oops. Let me get this open. Here we go. So this is from Creme 2.
Can I
this
just
was
say, Bertie?
Yep. Go ahead.
Hive, and this chat is just so amazing. All the comments of love and prayers and support in this hive is what makes this channel.
It does. It does. And that's why I think I get really bothered. Like, I don't care if people disagree, but it bothers me when people start coming at the motivation behind this stream. It
Yeah,
bothers me when
yeah,
people
I
question
agree.
that we're asking effing questions, everybody. That's all we're doing. And it's not being malicious towards anybody. You want to talk about malicious? What people have said about myself and my wife and Phoenix and DA and Sammy T and people in this hive is way more malicious than anything that we've said about victims' families. I can promise you that. So that's why I get bothered. It's like we have people in here with real perspective that have been through the situation. And like I've said, newsflash, these are not the only families to lose children in a tragic situation. It's happened so many times that there's a pattern that you can see, and there's a gut instinct that a lot of people have where it's like something feels a little bit off, whether it's the narrative, whether it's the story, whether it's the evidence, whether it's behavior, whatever it is. And for such a controversial case, it's odd how divisive and it's like, stop worrying about the creators. How about start diving into the case then? Yeah, I don't get it. And that's my
Yeah, and
2 cents on that.
and talking about behavior, I don't know who this individual is, Space Cadet in here. There is no GoFundMe made for Bryan Kohberger, and no, I will not be making a GoFundMe for this mother who's lost their child. If you know anything, there is no GoFundMe for Bryan Kohberger. There will be a legal trust made when an attorney is selected, and if we want to donate, since he is innocent, you can feel free to donate. So I just want to put that to rest. And all the people coming against me and Birdie, not today. Not
No,
today.
no, not today. And I think too, Phoenix, I emailed you too. And just to clarify, Hive, I've been getting a lot of questions about this website. I have no affiliation with that. That's Phoenix's project, and she's working on that. So I believe she mentioned it on stream. But yeah, as far as what I have no idea how to get into contact other than just hit up Phoenix, and I know she's been working on that. So yeah, I have no idea about it. Any
Yeah,
GoFundMe
so
if
that
there ever would
website,
be. Go ahead.
no, that website is justiceforall.com, and it has the link to the PDF that you made, that you sent me. It's on the website, so anyone can search these documents
Oh
and
yeah.
see from themselves very quickly. It has been so helpful when I do a live and we do a dig. People are putting the pieces together quicker and faster. That's the only reason it was made.
Yeah. And so anyways, going back to it, this is back from March. Was it March that it was? Let me see. Yeah, March 29th, 2023. It says could be dynamite. Defense attorney on implications of an internal affairs investigation related to an officer in the Kohberger case. The court documents reveal prosecutors have shared potential Brady Giglio material with the defense. The information has been sealed by the court. Imagine that. New court documents in the case of the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students show Latah County prosecutors are sharing new evidence regarding an officer involved with the case. Prosecutors told the court the information is related to a confidential internal affairs investigation involving the officer and his potential Brady Giglio material. That's how you say that word, right, Phoenix? Giglio? Or am I wrong? Okay. That
No, you're
information
right.
is, yeah. That information has now been handed over to the defense team for Bryan Kohberger. The judge also granted a protective order that prevents the defense team from sharing the information and seals the documents from public view. It could be huge for the defense, or it could be totally meaningless since we don't know what it is, said Seattle defense attorney John Henry Brown, who is known for defending convicted serial killer Ted Bundy. Brady materials refer to the case Brady versus Maryland, where the United States Supreme Court held that there must be a timely disclosure to the defendant of favorable material information that is known to the government, according to a definition posted by the National Association of Attorney Generals. The NAAG adds that Brady material includes information that could negate guilt or affect punishment. Giglio extends Brady to include the responsibility to disclose information that could impeach a witness, typically a law enforcement officer or an informant. Is that weird? Are we just going to skip right over that? Because that's crazy. Brown explains that the Brady Giglio involves a continuing obligation that the defense and law enforcement must hand over that possible exculpatory evidence to the defense. Must hand over that possible exculpatory evidence to the defense. They're actually under Giglio and Brady. Prosecutors have an obligation to look for such evidence, Brown said. Though, with the mention of internal affairs investigation, it looks like this disclosure is about a potential challenge to the credibility of a police officer in the case. Now, after seeing the police reports, who do you guys believe that this could be? If you guys had to guess.
Oh, yeah, I already got a guess.
I mean, I
have to say allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, who
Do you want me
knows
to
who
tell
it is?
you?
I'm just saying, I don't know who it would be, but it's like we're gonna get to see
Ah.
these reports. They've kept two that they've kept, or they've got a lot more that they're not showing us yet. You know what I mean?
I would have to, yeah, but I would have to say that we've not seen anything from Nate Rosendahl. And why haven't we?
I don't know.
If I had to guess.
Yeah. Most police departments have created what's called a Brady list. On the Brady list are officers, detectives, internal personnel who have committed some sort of an error in the past, and the defense should be told about it, Brown said. Disclosures about Brady Giglio are common, Brown cautions, so this doesn't necessarily mean a bombshell in the murder case. Not turning over such information can lead to cases being overturned, like what happened with the original Brady versus Maryland case, Brown added. It's also important to note that the Brady Giglio material mentioned here may have nothing to do with the Moscow murder case itself. It could be something as small as a DUI 25 years ago, or it could be more serious, Brown said. Obviously, the most serious thing for the prosecution, the state, would be if the officer, detective, whatever, has some history of not telling the truth. Okay, so let me now also just say that while it could just be that, it could also be the other thing. See how you look at both sides? However, now looking at the totality of the lack of things that are looked into in a police report, looking at the way that this case has gone, looking at all the sealed stuff, I tend to lean more on the side of, well, I'd be curious if it does have to do with this case. Now, on the other hand, anything that could really make a difference in this case, you never hear about. So I'm curious as to why this had come out in the media. You know what I'm saying? I feel like if it was really a big deal, they would have kept it under wraps.
Well, obviously, it was just the local channel sharing this information.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a
Yeah,
good
they
point.
weren't going to put that on the national media. They weren't going to say, "Oh my gosh, some officers are being," and I heard about this a while ago, that they were being investigated. Whatever happened about that? Did they have any follow-up?
I don't know. I don't know.
Remember, it's
And
not Gunderson was with the ISP. So it wasn't Gunderson, it was somebody within the Moscow Police Department.
correct. Well, actually, so because that wouldn't apply to, I mean, it says that it typically a law enforcement officer or an informant is who it applies to.
Could be an
So,
informant then, somebody
right,
in the
that's what I'm
case.
saying. It could be an informant, and it could be exculpatory evidence or impeaching of a witness.
Ah, an informant, a witness. Could that be Molly McDonald?
Maybe. Maybe.
McDaniel, whatever you say.
So Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania on December 30th, 2022 for the murder of 4 University of Idaho students that wait, did I already read that? Oh, no. Anyways, preliminary hearings in June. So now that takes me into the bones of this stream, the conversation that I really want to have. And I figured let's just go back and let's just talk about 5 simple questions that have 0 answers. In any homicide case, especially one with this much national attention, these 5 questions are the bare minimum of what you would expect to have answered. The fact that none of them are resolved and that core narrative pieces were walked back should deeply concern anyone who cares about justice, truth, and how cases are prosecuted in America. Now, I say when they've had core narrative pieces that were walked back, should I show the video, Phoenix, of the FBI press conference with Brett Payne?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Answering questions. So if
And
you're just
Gunderson.
tuning in, like I said, if you're new to the Hive here, why don't we go ahead and why don't we watch this? And this is probably breaking news for anybody that hasn't been in, on a channel that looks into theories, because most people probably didn't watch this. They just watched the plea and the sentencing. But this is interesting. Can you guys hear that?
No sound.
No sound.
No sound.
How about now?
No.
Shoot. All right, let me refresh it.
Where'd he go? Yeah, I believe he's in protective custody.
So I'm back. I had to reload this. Sorry, everybody. Sometimes that happens, like if it loses connections. But anyways, here we go. We will watch this. Thank you for the patience. And Phoenix, if it came back and I interrupted you, sorry. What was the point you were making?
No, you're fine. They say he's in solitary confinement. I think he's in protective custody. So go ahead.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Dollinger, and I am the Chief of Police of the Moscow Police Department. Thank you for joining us. Today marks the conclusion of a case that has profoundly impacted the University of Idaho, the City of Moscow, the State of Idaho, and communities nationwide. Today's sentencing of Bryan Kohberger brings the legal process to a close following his conviction for the brutal murders of Kayla Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin.
So I want to skip to this part here. You guys get the point of the press conference. This is right after Bryan Kohberger was sentenced. I'm going to skip to this part here. This is the important part that I want everybody to listen to. I want you to look at body language. I want you to listen to the answers. And I want you to tell me how this sounds like. An airtight case, or they just convicted Kohberger on vibes and trust us, bro.
We already know real. Well, I'll tell you from
that reason for a crime, and also how do you as investigators are trying to grapple with that? Because I'm just wondering, did the lack of knowing the reason or the motive concern you when prepping for trial? Because juries tend to want to explore the motive or reason for a crime, and also how do you as investigators are trying to grapple with that? Because if you can't rationalize something irrational, then how do you continue knowing that you won't get an answer?
Well, I'll tell you from an investigator standpoint, we already know and realize we often don't get to know that. We want it. We all do. We naturally want that. But the reality is it's not something that we have to have or that we get. And the reality also is that oftentimes those very things that you're asking about, they're only known to one person. It's the person that commits those crimes. And I think that's probably what we have here.
And I would add that going through this whole investigation, I'd probably say it's easier than it was for Bill's offices. We were focused on a task. We had a task to do, and it was discovering evidence and interviewing folks and that sort of thing. So the motive necessarily doesn't play a part in that, right? Obviously it can, but we were just focused on getting the job done in the correct way as best we could. So,
and from the prosecutor's point of view, yeah, certainly lack of a clear motive is something that we think about and consider as we're preparing for trial, because we're going to have a jury of 12, ordinary, honest citizens there who are wanting to figure this thing out. But we also, and I've also found that juries tend to follow the law. And even jurors who come in with strong feelings, they tend to follow the law that the judge gives. And there is no element of motive in Idaho law for murder. And so we set that aside as something that we were going to dwell on, whether there was clear proof of a specific motive, because we knew it wasn't legally required. And practically speaking, we knew it wasn't something that we possessed that we could give to the jury without speculating. And I'm sure as heck not going to stand in front of a bunch of 12 jurors and start speculating. We're going to give them the evidence. And the evidence in this case, what you heard at the time of his guilty plea back on the 2nd, that evidence was compelling, and it showed his guilt without having to worry about motive in a human sense. But thank you for the question.
In the back.
Did that answer anybody's question? He just said we legally don't have to provide a motive. Well, there's no U.S. state. It's not just Idaho law. No U.S. state requires motive. And then he says, I'm not going to get up there and speculate in front of 12 jurors. Well, look, did
he say anything when he was arrested?
Yeah. So Brett and myself, and members of the FBI, we traveled back to Pennsylvania. We were there. And I know they hit on it earlier, but I'd be remiss without talking about the cooperation and the support that we had from them was absolutely incredible. From the time that we got on the ground with the Pennsylvania State Police and with the FBI back there, it was unbelievable. Anything that we needed, they were there to facilitate it. So we helped to shape what that looked like, what the arrest looked like, what took place once they hit the house on the search warrant and he was taken into custody. Brett and I were at another location, a barracks of the Pennsylvania State Police. And then he was brought to us and we conducted an interview with him that night there in Pennsylvania. So
we went into this interview. We used a lot of.
He went that entire time without answering a simple yes or no question of, did Bryan Kohberger ask if anybody else was arrested? That was his answer to that. And now he refers to the other guy to answer it.
Influence and guidance from the FBI and their behavioral analysis unit. They help us a ton in framing our interview strategy rather. When we spoke to Mr. Kohberger, we kept it pretty surface level to begin with. The idea being get him to speak and keep him speaking. It was pretty surface level. And then when we tried to get into things a bit more detail, he decided to end the interview. So that's pretty much
as soon as we tried to walk into the purpose of why we're there, which obviously he knows we're detectives from Idaho. So that's when we really started to shut down and they just shut it down. So
that's Gunderson with the ISP.
Yep.
Say very similar to what you see and whenever you see him in court.
Okay, next question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mike Baker for the New York Times. I'm wondering if you can talk about Mr. Kohberger's family, whether you got much cooperation, tips, input from them along the way.
The only thing I'm really able to talk about is that we didn't get any tips or any evidentiary items from the family.
And wasn't there a rumor that Bryan Kohberger's own sister said he did it? You guys remember that?
Yeah, that was a rumor. But do you know the guy on the left, Gunderson? He has a connection, and I'm wondering which of two of these guys is the good guy, bad guy. Watch their behaviors. Watch their mannerism. Which one's crooked, which one's not.
Yeah, well, let's see.
So,
and I'll rewind that so you guys didn't hear it.
Okay, next question.
Family, whether you got much cooperation, tips, input from them along the way.
The only thing I'm really able to talk about is that we didn't get any tips or any evidentiary items from the family. So, anything to add to that?
No.
Yes.
Just wondering if you ever had an idea of what made Mr. Kohberger take the plea deal at the end.
No. That was a short answer. You probably have time for a short follow-up.
Can I also ask a follow-up to the investigators? I know there's some reports that there was.
Again, it's just odd. Like, I understand this is over, but it's like, dude, there's still 4 people that are dead, and then there's somebody who just got sentenced to life in prison. And from the second he was asked that question, look at how he walks up to the thing.
No. That was a short answer. You probably have time for a short follow-up.
Can I also ask a follow-up to the investigators? I know there's some reports that there was pillars of pines per container out of the house. Did you ever determine what that was?
No, and the belief was in the one surviving roommates in her statement, and that's out there, was that she observed something in his hand when she saw him, but we don't know what it was.
You had an expert who was going to testify about him cleaning something off of his work computer, some software experts. Was there any evidence that he had tried to wipe anything from his phone, software-wise? The barn cards, I believe, is the name.
Yeah, and so this kind of goes into the connection to the victims as well. That's a similar question. We had the world's foremost experts on this look into it, and there was evidence that he had used software to wipe many of his devices relatively effectively. So there wasn't much evidence obtained after that.
But the main part, here's what I want people to realize about that wiping the computer. Wiping your computer, if you wipe your computer, where's the context? Was it after he got arrested? Well, how would he have been able to do that? And wiping your computer or clearing your computer or doing your history, whatever it is, you could speculate on if that's guilt. But what I want you guys to take away from that is the evidence part. He was saying there was not any evidence on it. Wiped or not. Okay,
Correct.
so if you can't see the evidence, there's no evidence at the end of the day.
Exactly. And there's ways to pull that up. But if you're guilty of something, you don't keep a device. You get rid of a device. You don't one and wipe it.
Right. And also, did they just say that because, again, if Bryan was an informant or a Fed, did they just say, hey, you're about to be, I don't know what they said, but it's like, I'm just theorizing. It's like, wipe the device. We don't want anybody knowing that you were involved with helping the FBI in this. Clear it. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
I think he had one active phone, but I don't remember, so don't quote me if he had.
And now they talk about the phones. Well, he had one active one. I don't remember. Wait, you guys just said he had his burner phone. That's why it was turned off, and that's the one you got. Jesus, H. So that's what I'm saying. If you guys haven't seen this, these are the literal investigators. So
these are the Three Stooges.
Yeah,
effectively. So there wasn't much evidence obtained after that.
He had two cell phones, or was it just the one cell phone?
I think he had one active phone, but I don't remember, so don't quote me if he had more at his home or office or somewhere else. Yeah, he regularly used software to try to clear things off.
He regularly used software, just like he regularly took pictures of a thumbs up, just like he regularly called his parents every morning.
I mean, I regularly delete my old videos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he regularly used software to try to clear things off. He used VPN on his devices also.
Okay, back here.
Kevin Fixer with United States. I'm hoping you can walk us through the decision to hand off the DNA process on the wave sheet over to Offer Labs, who's contracted by ISP, and then ultimately the FBI takes over that IgG process. And then Prosecutor Thompson, I'm curious if you had concerns about constitutional rights issues based on how the FBI conducted themselves in that part.
I'll start, and I'll just speak briefly to, when we were notified that we had a DNA from the knife sheath, and it was a single source male DNA, touch DNA. then we knew that we had capabilities to take that further. So that you're correct, the Idaho State Police has a contract with Othram Laboratories in Texas. So we flew that over there, and they started the process of working that, and what was the beginning of the IGG process. And at some point during it, we were working with the FBI, which we did closely throughout the entire case and every aspect of it. We talked and met with them, and they had further resources and some capabilities that we thought may get us somewhere quicker. And so we made the decision to then shift that to the FBI and continue that process there.
So they were able to essentially, yes, constitutionally violate it, but they brought it internally to the FBI to do that process and those capabilities that they were able to do to save time. If he was the only killer, and they were so convinced that it was him and it's this DNA and all this stuff, and they've got him arrested, and it wasn't a targeted attack, and they told people from the first press conference 4 days after the murders that it was targeted, the community is safe, although we don't have any answers. I just don't understand that. Why would you rush through that process?
I think the only thing targeted was Kohberger, because ISP Moscow sent the police officer, flew them to Othram in Houston with the sheath after they did their little thing, right? So like 6 or 7 days after they found the sheath, they had Moscow fly to Houston with the sheath and test it, and then Othram sent it back, but there's no chain of custody of it returning with the DNA found. So then they just put it back in evidence. And they were banking on this to be the smoking gun.
Right.
And as to your question about legal concerns, my simple answer is no. I didn't have legal concerns about how the FBI conducted their IGG investigation. I know that was the subject of lengthy, detailed, painfully detailed motions and briefing, and Mr. Nye rose to the occasion and was able to address all of that. But in the end,
Is that, again, is this some sort of inside joke like we talked about? Like, what the heck?
Detailed, painfully detailed motions and briefing, and Mr. Nye rose to the occasion and was able to address all of that. But in the end, it's simply no different than sending somebody undercover into any place.
Listen to what he says here. Listen to what he just says here. So he says, Nye rose to the occasion.
And was able to address all of that. But in the end, it's simply no different than sending somebody undercover into any place to gather information. And I was not concerned about the legality of it. And the judge came through and made the right decision that there was no violation of the defendant's rights or anybody else's rights.
Had he not left the knife sheath behind, would you have been able to track him down?
We've talked about this ad nauseum. The answer is yes. Through the car, most likely. We had some amazing people going truly line by line over tens of thousands of white Hyundai Elantras. So we believe we would have got to it through that avenue. The time frame for that is uncertain. It could have been a week later, could have been 2 months later. We just don't know. We would have found him. We would have found him.
There's a lot of questions in regards to that initial window. Brett and I made the decision on what that window was, even though the experts were saying there may be more years that match it. But the simple numbers that we began to look at were astronomical, of thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of these vehicles. So we chose to try to narrow it and start smaller. And then as we had to, we were going to open that up. But we both believe we would have gotten him through the car eventually.
A question for Mr. Thompson. Amanda Rowling with Current 2. It appears that the plea deal, it felt a bit rushed. So the question is, why did it happen so quickly, considering some of the families were against it? And also, the Mogan family at the plea hearing mentioned saying that this is the best possible outcome. I'm just wondering, do you agree with that, or would you like to see a different outcome?
Well, I think we agree with the Mogan family. Our decision was that this is the best possible outcome, all things considered, and factoring into that the defendant was prepared to plead guilty as charged. Now, if that hadn't been a factor, we'd be picking a jury for trial starting right now, or starting this week. What was the first part?
Why was this so such a quick? It felt rushed. So why did this happen so quickly? Even though the family.
No, I hear you. The process moved quickly. There was no doubt about it. And like I outlined for the court earlier today, things changed dynamically the week following the June 18th hearings on the defense motion for a continuance and the alternate perpetrator motion, where Judge Hippler made it very clear that the defense was not going to prevail on either of those. And so the reality of trial was there, and there was nothing else in its way. We were continuing to prepare for trial. We had been doing that for months. And as I mentioned, that's me bringing Mr. Hurwood in to help us because the Attorney General's office was not able with the manpower to help us all the way through trial. We were ready to go. When we were approached by the defense about the possibility of a plea, our first question was, is your client prepared to plead guilty? And it took them a little while to give us that answer. In the meantime, we reached out to the families and we talked to the families and we solicited their input. And we considered that in making our decision. The fact of the matter is, and I think Judge Hippler commented on this back on July 2nd when we were in court, is that the logistics of the upcoming trial with 10,000 prospective jurors being summoned in, the court staff making arrangements and preparing to process that part of the case dictated that if the case was going to resolve, it needed to resolve quickly. And so that kind of drove the pace over that weekend, the last weekend of June. At the end of the weekend, when we understood from the defense that the defendant was prepared to plead guilty, the court was notified the next morning, and the court wanted to move quickly to get a plea done on the record if it was going to be done, and if it wasn't, so we were not interrupted in our trial preparations.
But that still doesn't answer the reporter's question of like, why now? Why now? You know what I'm saying? He just said, well, if it was going to be resolved, it's got to move quickly. And they approach the defense. So I don't get it.
No, in the sentencing, he said specifically the defense approached them, and that's not how it works. You heard Allie. Allie was on your live. I mean, the power is held by the prosecution. The prosecution's job is to prosecute their case. So they hold the keys to the kingdom.
Right. Yep.
Judge Hippler had said prior, right, with the jury as a factor.
Yeah, the practical aspect is that the trial machine was running, and if it was going to be interrupted, that had to be known as soon as possible. I think that's the fairest explanation.
Okay, question here.
I just had a question about when you were looking into Kohberger's past. Was there any early signs of trouble, or what did his background look like?
Well, we can't go into his younger years. I believe that's actually still under seal. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what I can tell you is the thing.
Why would Bryan Kohberger's childhood be under seal? Why can't you find anything on the internet of his childhood pre-2015, really? Couple photos. Remember what Scott Payne, who was the undercover FBI agent inside of the white nationalist biker gang, what he talked about, what they can do with making sure you don't get found out who your real identity is? He was Scott Calloway undercover. His real name's Scott Payne. And he said, I said, so what does that mean? They'll scrub stuff? And he goes, way deeper than that. Like way deeper. That's what this sounds like here. Yes.
Erase you were ever born.
Exactly.
Things we do know about him was that his education led him down a path that was very much focused on forensics, crime scenes, that sort of thing. So that was really what we focused on in his background, is what led him down this path. How may he have prepared for this? And I think that was a big component of that, was just his schooling and his choice of potential future profession. So,
And just
Wow.
so, just so there's no
Sounds like he was
speculation
kind of
here,
praising
Bryan,
him.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it also sounds like,
There's-
well, we chose to go with his schooling because we could build the perfect narrative around the fact that he studied criminology and he would know how to get away with it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
what Detective Payne just said. Documents under seal involving Mr. Kohberger's background, they may or may not be released down the road. I can tell you that there is no evidence of any criminal history of any significant nature. There was no evidence of a history of violence. There was no evidence of a history of a factual predisposition to do the crimes that he committed here. So if
Hang on. I just want to take the time too. I want to address Motoman's super chat. Thank you so much. By trial machine, is he really meaning written books about the incident in a Netflix video designed to create a narrative that were going to be released? Maybe. That's not a bad take. And I forgot, Fiji, thank you for the super chat. That was back when we were playing the video of the Hive member whose son was unfortunately unalived, but gave the perspective about the victim impact statements. So I also want you to listen to what Bill Thompson says here. Okay. Now, Bryan Kohberger pled guilty to what's the word with the malice forethought and premeditated, right? Wasn't there something said specifically when he was pleading guilty? Right. Now, listen to this. Listen to what he says here now. So this is interesting. The prosecutor says there's no evidence he had planned to commit these, yet he pled guilty to premeditated with malice forethought of committing them. How does that make sense?
They may or may not be released down the road. I can tell you that there is no evidence of any criminal history of any significant nature. There was no evidence of a history of violence. There was no evidence of a history of a factual predisposition to do the crimes that he committed here. So if there are any concerns among your listeners or readers that somehow he was a serial killer in waiting with all of these prior actions, we are not aware of any behaviors like that that preceded what happened here in Idaho.
So that's something that I want to point out. How come people are not up in arms about all the other stuff too, not just with Bryan, but about the roommates and the other roommates that Dateline puts out, that Amazon puts out, all these people who wrote the books put out? I don't get it. Listen to what he says. He's like, here's for your viewers and your listeners. We don't have anything. We don't know where the serial killer thing came from. It's all we heard. That's insane.
It looks like someone got caught.
We have two more after that. Finish up.
Mr. Thompson, you talked about the inconsistencies families before the plea deal was reached, including the Gonzalez's. Have you spoken to the Gonzalez's afterward about their displeasure with this? And if so, what has that conversation been like?
We have spoken with families afterwards, and I can tell you that families that did not agree with our decision have made that very clear to us. And I don't expect anything different. I respect, and we respect, that everyone is going to grieve differently, even within family units. And everyone is going to look at the case and possible resolutions from their own light, and they are entitled to that as victims. I'm not going to pretend that everybody was just fine with our decision, because there were families and family members who were not. And we accept that. We recognize that. It's just a fact of life.
Two more questions? We haven't called on you yet.
It was stated earlier that the target is unknown. However, it's been speculated that the convicted may have encountered Maddie while she was serving at the Maddie restaurant due to the vegan menu options. When his digital data was analyzed, were there any location pins or any information there that could have connected him to where Maddie worked?
No, there wasn't. Like I said earlier, we wanted that. We looked for it in every possible way, digitally, financially, physical location, anything you could think of, anything that we thought, where is the connection? Where's the overlap? And we searched tirelessly and never found it.
So I'm going to play that again. This in itself, man, this is what I'm talking about, the dangers of the narrative, because people haven't heard this. And you listen to people answer questions about how he's so guilty, and they reference everything that these guys are saying they never had evidence of. That's not a conspiracy. You're watching them say it.
Is there any information there that could have connected him to where Maddie worked?
No, there wasn't. Like I said earlier, we wanted that. We looked for it in every possible way, digitally, financially, physical location, anything you could think of, anything that we thought, where is the connection? Where's the overlap? And we searched tirelessly and never found it. I can't say that he was never there at all, but we never found any evidence at all from interviewing everybody that we possibly could, talking to every person that would have that information to be able to show that he was there or that there was a connection through the restaurant.
Okay, last question here.
Okay, just two follow-ups to earlier questions, if that's okay, so I can make sure we're understanding everybody correctly. First of all, Mike's question about the family. You said that you didn't get any evidence from the family. Was there any hindrance of the investigation from the family? And was there any specific evidence you were hoping to get?
Are you talking about his family, Kohberger's? Yeah. There was not any hindrance, anything, nothing that impacted us carrying out the investigation.
Okay, thank you. And then the second follow-up, when you mentioned, like, obviously he followed this line of interest in his studies, did anything in your investigation indicate that that was chosen as part of a planning process as opposed to just an area of interest?
There was nothing aside from, we have some of his coursework where he did, a crime scene recreation, that sort of thing, but it was all part of his studies. So I don't think that any of us attributed that to a planning process per se. Certainly it was a learning process, but whether or not it was a planning process ahead of what he did, we'll probably never know that.
Yeah, and I would say we didn't find anything that would be any different than a student similar, a different student in the PhD program.
Gotcha. So then I'm understanding that the planning process.
So he's a criminology student, and we've said here in the Hive, every single person that's in criminology, just to clarify, what is criminology? Criminology is the study of behaviors of criminals, how they think, why they think this way, how they do things. Criminal justice is the study of the system, cops, courts, whatever, that type of shit. It's different. And we've said that Reddit survey had to be approved by the research board before it was posted on Reddit. Because now that survey has been taken down and it was flagged. But if you go to the archive, I don't know if it's still up, but see, this is where it's like, I'm fairly positive, so do not quote me on this, but I'm almost positive that there was a link that you would click to fill out the actual survey if you were interested in taking it. So yes, the questions were written in the thread, but if you actually wanted to take the survey, you would click a link, and that link would go to the university's website where they would then fill it out in a portal.
Correct.
So how is that so nefarious? It's going to and Reddit is an anonymous forum. So if you're going to have criminals that committed crimes, it's actually a rather smart spot to get real data points, I would say. Wouldn't you, Phoenix?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
If your investigation turned up, if it was part of the plan, was maybe that purchase of the K-Bar knife on Amazon would have been the first, I guess, step toward.
Yeah.
Did he plan it? Did he buy it with the purpose of that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
And we don't
have
know.
anything to show or prove that he did that.
Well, thank you all. That concludes our Q&A section today. Hopefully we tried to get as many of you folks' questions answered as possible. I'm sure you're going to have further questions. And certainly the question was already brought up about public records requests.
We looked into every bit of it.
Here's a couple other questions that are very important.
That initially what is going to be on there, and certainly this is just for the Moscow Police Department because we're only the holders of our records, but it will be all of our police reports from this investigation. So just the documents there. They'll be redacted, ready to go, again, free of charge for the public. We want to be as transparent as we possibly can, so we wanted to get those out to everyone.
Chief, from the very beginning, your department was saying this was a targeted attack. Can you now say who was the target and what's your evidence to show that?
I'll turn that question over to the investigators to answer that one.
Well, I think Darren and I have, the evidence suggests that there was a reason that this particular house was chosen. What that reason is, we don't know. We don't know who the target was, and we're not going to speculate on that up here today. But we can tell you that for whatever reason, Mr. Kohberger chose that residence. Perhaps it's the location, layout, we don't know. But that's, to the best of my knowledge, that's what that statement likely led to.
There was a social media account that surfaced that has long had speculation that it was Bryan Kohberger. Can you talk at all about the Papa Roger?
They asked about Papa Rogers.
Right. There was no connection. There wasn't at all. We looked into every bit of it. We took a deep dive into it. We researched it. We utilized. It was not. It was not. Thank you. We can cut that off.
Is it possible that there was a second murder weapon used?
They said, is there a second murder weapon?
Is it possible? All the evidence shows and tells us that he used a knife, a K-bar knife, and that's a weapon we believe was used to commit all the murders.
Here.
It sounded like the Gonzalez family said that there was a second weapon that was used on Kaylee Gonzalez. Can you confirm?
He said that the G family said there's a second weapon used on Kaylee. Can you confirm?
Out of respect for the families, that's something that you'll have to get from them. If they wish to share that with you, it'd probably be through them, not through us.
And one more question. You said that it seemed like he chose that house. There's no clues as to why he chose that house?
You know, after working in Moscow for several years as Chief Dollinger, that area is frequented by many, many people at all hours of the night when college is in session. So what Darren and I have surmised is that perhaps it's the old hiding in plain sight. There's lots of people around. There's lots of vehicles around at all hours. It's not isolated where you'd be noticed. So that's where that comment comes from.
It does. And though it doesn't make sense, and it's if you were in that neighborhood at all, it's a very complicated neighborhood. It's very closed in. But at the same time, there's everything from college kids to adults that live there, people that have full-time jobs, part-time jobs. So any one of us could come and go and fit in there. So,
Frederick. DA Thompson, during the plea hearing and then again today, it seemed like your voice quivered a bit when you were either putting up the photographs or mentioning the victims' names. I'm just wondering about the emotional toll on that. One other question.
Yeah, you're right. My voice was quivering. Y'all were in there. There was a lot of powerful emotion. The losses are almost indescribable. And maybe my filters aren't as good as they might have been 45 years ago when I started in this business. But I think you also saw that even Judge Hippler was affected and impacted by this. There is no easy way to remain stiff-lipped and dry-eyed through this kind of tragedy. There just simply isn't.
I'm sure you're not aware of this yet, but there was a photograph where they zoomed in on a picture that Bryan Kohberger had on the defense counsel table. It was an image of a black heart. I don't know if you've heard this or if you've seen the image. Hearing this, your thoughts?
First I've heard of it. There is something I need to say though real quick. This is the product of, I'm sure I'm getting old in my failed memory, but there's one other person I need to recognize, and this is very important to us because this was a key person that was going to take us through trial, and that's Josh Hurwitz, the former United States Attorney for the District of Idaho who left office and voluntarily joined our office as a special deputy to help us. My apologies for the oversight as I wasn't reading my notes correctly, but thank you for that little interlude. Chief? Yes.
I guess my question is for Mr. Thompson, since you're still up there, incidentally, don't know who the target was and why he targeted this house. Was there a reason why, as part of the plea agreement, you didn't require Ann Taylor to have her clients sit down with you all and to answer some of these questions?
I think that Judge Hippler addressed that today very, very well. Of course, Judge Hippler addresses everything very well, we found. The law does not give the court or us the power to require a specific factual allocution. And just let me finish. And we recognize that. We recognize that we could have said, well, in order for us to move forward, we want a factual allocution. But I have to be perfectly candid. I don't believe that there's anything that would come out of his mouth that would be the truth. I don't believe that there's anything that would come out of his mouth that would be anything other than self-serving. And I don't believe there's anything that would come out of his mouth that would not further victimize the families. And so that just simply wasn't a factor. We made our decision based on our assessment of law and the facts. We made our decision based on being able to obtain accountability and certainty, not just for the victims' families, but for the communities and for the state.
So I'm going to try to think a little bit differently on this. And that is, the way that he says that is that we could have required it, but we chose not to. Now, that's his public-facing answer. And he says that he doesn't believe it would have been anything factual. It would have been nothing that wouldn't have been self-serving. It wouldn't have victimized the families further. But you got to remember, he's the guy going for a prosecution. So would it just have not matched what Bill has been saying? And Bill's not going to come and say, he's telling the truth. I've been the one that's been, kind of framing this narrative around all things that now you just heard the investigator say, well, we didn't have any of that. Yet that's what we were all told. And I wonder if it was actually the opposite, that the plea deal was offered and he doesn't get to do that. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't have an opportunity to say it then. And he doesn't have an opportunity to say things that could contradict it. So it's like, this is the public-facing viewpoint. No, it wouldn't have been the truth. But from his perspective, it's strategic because Bryan couldn't ever mix up anything with what Bill has been saying as far as what he did. And Bryan could talk and say, no, that's not how it went. Here's what actually happened. Or if he says something even just slightly off. So not only do I think that, but I think this is a good point too. That's why I didn't want to go to trial. Can't take the stand and say, I don't know, and expect to get a guilty verdict.
Right. But also, if, Bill Thompson's standing here telling us all this and this, if Bryan Kohberger would have got up and said, no, that's not accurate, or no, I didn't do this, then what happens is you go back down the same route and go to trial. And then he's got to prove that he's actually guilty.
Right. You have to prove it.
There's no evidence. Yeah.
You got to understand.
He has to prove it. He has to prosecute.
I'm telling you guys, this is crazy. The reason why I have taken such an interest into this case is because the state of Idaho has just told us. Amazon, Dateline, these authors have just told us Bryan Kohberger's guilty. They've used things that these investigators, as you all just heard, have said, no, he didn't do anything at the Mad Greek. He wasn't following them on social media. We looked financially. We looked everywhere. We didn't see any connection. Well, did you find something on his computers? Well, he wiped it.
No.
So we didn't have any evidence. And he regularly wiped it. So it's not unusual. So it's like, it's not
They're
just saying.
backtracking.
Exactly. They're distancing themselves big time
From a lawsuit.
It's just crazy.
And that's where our obligations go. In the end, and the old Harry Truman thing, the buck stops on my desk. Well, that's what I got when I was elected prosecutor 33 years ago. I never dreamed it would involve something like this, but we don't shirk our responsibilities just because it got big and nasty.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to keep pausing this thing. You've been doing this for 33 years. It's a multi-victim homicide. Like by a single perpetrator who's not from there, that you tracked across the country, that you had an Amazon receipt of a K-bar knife with touch DNA on it. Is that seem like in 33 years in your career that would be a big and nasty case? It's one guy, criminology student, didn't go there, lived within 10 miles. You had his car on camera. Like nothing that they told us makes any sense or matches to what he just said. Think about a 33-year career prosecuting people. If the narrative was true, do you think he would say, I've never dreamed of having that where it's so big and nasty? You could say, oh, well, he's talking about the media. Well, is he? Because I don't think would the media hype up such a straightforward narrative? And you'd say, oh, it's the victims. It's this, it's that. It's like, okay, there's an argument to be made on that. I'll give you that. But then why seal all the evidence if the media is going to be doing it? Why not? Why wouldn't the state be shouting from the rooftops, look at this evidence, see, and releasing it? No, they sealed it. They
You're
redacted
right.
it. They didn't want anybody to hear it or see it.
Yeah, because it's going to go against their agenda in what they're doing. They're trying to negate it now. They're trying to backpedal now because when he files and we know he's innocent, he's going to have a huge, tremendous lawsuit, just like the other 17 lawsuits he's filed in Washington.
Yeah, somebody just sparked my memory too from like the Mason thing. I'd be curious,
Oh,
like
yeah,
how many judges, prosecutors, or like state officials retire after a 33-year career.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
be curious.
Yeah. They all scatter like cockroaches, no joke. But if you think about it, look at Bryan Kohberger. He can't speak for 99 years because there is a no contact. He's silenced for 99 years.
Right. He doesn't have a burner phone. It's just crazy. That's what this makes me lead to believe, that what we're being told in general might not be the truth. Again, just because I'm saying there might be a witness protection aspect in it, and just because I'm saying, there's been psyops to question if anybody died, or to question if maybe some are still alive, or to question, the theory of whatever. I can point to other examples of us being fed a false flag attack or a psyop in the news where, yes, unfortunately, people really did die, but that is a piece of it. And I believe Sherlock Holmes' quote is, the best psyops are always centered around core pillars of truth. They give you just enough truth of it to make it look legitimate. Now, I'm going to play this for about 2 more minutes, and then I want to move on here quick. I just want to see if there's another question that I've been waiting, that I actually started here to see, and we haven't seen it yet, but there's like one more part that I want to show of this.
Corporal Payne and Lieutenant Robertson. First of all, I want to say to you, Corporal Payne, that the Chapin family told me that you called them every night during that nearly 7-week manhunt, even though you didn't have to. And I just think that goes to show that there's some truth in this. So, that being said, I'm curious as to where you think or believe the murder weapon is, where you think or believe the clothes Kohberger was wearing that night are, and how do you think he avoided forensics?
Well, I can just tell you, and forgive us if we go back and forth. It's just kind of how we roll. But there is no evidence that we found that would lead us to any specific, even general location as to where the murder weapon or the clothes have been. And we searched. I mean, the FBI, again, to their credit, we had folks doing soil samples and so all sorts of things to try to come up with somewhere to start searching for these things, and we just never found it. As far as the forensics piece, I'll let Darren speak to
Yeah,
that.
and on the weapon, it wasn't a lack of trying. Everywhere that we had evidence of where he went, based upon phone records, based upon the evidence that we had gathered, we searched that. We went there. We did searches on the ground, in the water. We did searches. We sent soil samples to try to figure out maybe where a shovel had been used. So we searched everywhere that we possibly could. But the reality is we're looking for a singular small, it's not that small, but K-bar knife, and that's it.
So think about that.
Oh, it's not that small.
If they go to everywhere that Bryan Kohberger's phone was, if they go to where the soil that they found on this plastic shovel was found, if they go everywhere Bryan Kohberger was and they never found it, is there any bit of a red flag that's like, oh, it's same thing with the clothes. You don't find it. He doesn't tell you. Like, that's the part that I'm trying to say, everybody. How do you go everywhere where this dude went when you were tracking him and in your investigation and not find a murder weapon of a knife? You can't like burn a K-bar to ashes easily, at least. I'm sure you could, melt it down. But like the way that they're saying all this stuff that Bryan would have had to do to get away with it, the clothes, whatever, then it's like, to Bill Thompson's point, then make that a part of the plea. Then ask him. But instead, no, he didn't want to hear that because he was afraid that Bryan might have said something that didn't line up with the narrative. That's my honest, genuine opinion. And I'm shocked. They didn't get a motive. There was no connection to the girls, not on social media, not financially, not at the Mad Greek restaurant. They never found evidence of any DNA on his clothes. They even took soil samples from a shovel. They went everywhere where his phone was. He didn't have a burner phone. They didn't find any evidence of that. They couldn't tell us the motive. They didn't say that his criminology background or anything was suspicious, as if we've been told that he was obsessed with serial killers. You're going to hear the part about the picture with the hoodie and how there was a lot of pictures of him doing a thumbs up on his phone. And that the call at that time that day that everyone said, oh, he called somebody right after. He regularly called them around that time. They're saying all of this. So I wish that people would watch this. And this is the questions that we're asking are confusing people because they're not seeing this. We are looking crazy by asking questions because they're not listening to what the investigators are saying. They're coming out now and they're saying, we don't have any of this evidence. Bill Thompson's saying it. Investigators are saying it. They're not going to tell us about Bryan Kohberger's childhood? What? Why? How is that even relevant? Why would that be sealed? They're not going to.
Because it doesn't matter anymore.
It's just insane. They're distancing themselves.
So it's endless of where it could have been, and we just were not able to find it. So.
The scene, in a murder scene where we now know Kaylee Gonzalez was stabbed 34 times and then another victim was stabbed more than that.
Right. So the reality is that somebody can carry this out and still not get covered in blood. That's the reality of it. And this does happen. And there's
I'm not saying that this is the most insane shit that I've ever heard in my life, but it's up there. I can get behind where if you would stab somebody like a single time or two, or even a couple times in close proximity, a couple times, yes, I can see how you might not get it on you. They just stated stabbing someone 34 times, 55 times in the dark, in a house where you have no idea how many people are in it, with two roommates that are alive, a dude who's like 6'3". It's just what the reality is. Okay, fine. Can you show us the case then? Can you tell us the case so that we can look into it? What case did somebody go commit a quadruple homicide with a K-bar knife that has autism, dexterity issues, and no connection to the girls with no motive and not get blood on them either? Come on. What are we talking about? And I feel like he's using the terms, well, the reality is, like, I'm the experts, you guys aren't. This is, I'm telling you the truth. Like, you know what I'm saying? It seems a little bit forced.
Plenty of studies of that. And we've had some of the world's experts that we've asked those same questions because we've struggled with that. Why do we not find more here and there? And the reality was, if somebody has the training, if somebody has thought about it, if somebody wears the right type of clothing, that could be the outcome. And that's what we were.
Yes, that's a great point. There was blood on the ceilings in both of the bedrooms, blood leaking out of the foundation of the house, blood on the banister, blood on the handrail, blood on the wall, everywhere. It's everywhere. These cops have never seen a crime scene this bad, but yet nothing on him. Trace DNA on a knife sheath. And I can't not tell the story that Allie Benevento tells because it's powerful. Allie Benevento, if you don't know, she is a trial defense attorney in North Carolina. She worked on the Murdaugh case. And She was on the stream and she told a story about trace DNA on a homeless gentleman who was passed out and drunk outside of a liquor store. The EMTs were called. The EMT came and put a pulse ox on his finger. That same EMT, a couple hours later, got called to a homicide of a rich IT businessman. The EMT used the same pulse ox on that now deceased businessman at that homicide, at the crime scene. Well, when they did their autopsy and they did their investigation, they found trace DNA under the guy's fingernail of the gentleman 2 hours earlier who was passed out from being drunk, and they convicted him of murder. That's how fragile trace DNA is. And Allie has said, I don't call it touch DNA. Touch DNA gives you a it's like misleading to a jury, because when you hear touch DNA, you think, oh, they touched it, the item they touched, it was there. No, it should be called trace DNA. And it can go surface to surface on that. I'll finish this out. Give it another minute.
Left with. Over here.
Gene Soros with CNN, Mr. Thompson, did you do psychological testing on Bryan Kohberger? Did that weigh into your decision to have a plea deal? And stabbings, multiple stabbings are very personal. How did you assess that mode of murder?
I can tell you that psychological testing was done for Mr. Kohberger. The results of that do not rise to a defense to his conduct under Idaho law. The results of the various testing, most of it done by the defense or on behalf of the defense, it's also sealed by court order. So I can't speak to any specifics, but I can tell you, yes, psychological testing was done. I can also tell you that no, psychological testing or any potential psychological condition, Mr. Kohberger, that did not play a role in our decision.
Bill, does it have any bearing on where he will be placed or housed?
Where Mr. Kohberger, where the defendant is going to be housed, is going to be up to the Idaho Department of Correction. And that could very well change over time. And the reality is we will know about it after it happens.
Over here.
Did you monitor Mr. Kohberger's communications while he was incarcerated? And did he say anything that was helpful or gave you any insight as to why he did this?
Yeah, we did monitor it, both while he was housed in Latah County and then once he was moved down to Ada County. We have hundreds, thousands of hours of monitoring that was done, but there was nothing of evidentiary value that was gained from any of it.
Will you be releasing those conversations?
That's a good question.
It's my understanding that the jail will not be releasing things that involve personal conversations with third parties. That ultimately would be a decision, because the recordings are in possession of the two correctional facilities or detention facilities. But I'm pretty certain the Latah County Sheriff's Office policy does not allow for that, and I would guess Ada County is similar. You can ask them.
Back here.
Thank you. Greg Fisher with CBS News 48 Hours. Was there any evidence that Kohberger was following the social media of any of the victims?
This part.
So trust us, we wanted that to be the case. We've looked for a link and we have not found one, not one.
Yeah, through the entire investigation, I think that's something that we need, that you want, is to help to understand this and say, well, what's the connection? What was the link? And so we had every resource possible, and we worked that tirelessly, both from everything from his side, but all the victims and all the members of the house from their side. So we have never, to this date, found a single connection between him and any of the four victims or the two surviving roommates.
Michael Ruiz from Fox News Digital. My question's for the investigators. You guys are going through this case. You've got a lot of evidence about his background, his education, his training. You said earlier you couldn't identify the reason the house was targeted. Do you have a motive for this?
So that's where we started. So, guys, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not saying this to be sarcastic. It's like, if you listen to that and you still don't question things, and if you listen to that, you don't start to think, okay, well, what really happened? And then that's where you start to think about, okay, was Moscow PD corrupt? Was there something going on that got the feds' attention, like an overdose death, where a tip came into the FBI that maybe the Moscow PD wasn't looking into enough, or uninvestigated suspicious deaths from hazing in frats that weren't looked into enough, and the university didn't do shit about it, and the Moscow PD didn't do anything about it. Would that explain all the sweetheart deals of the local drug dealers getting out because the feds got involved? They gave them the sweetheart deals, and they wanted to watch and see, is the Moscow PD going to do their job? Are they going to get this fixed? Fentanyl ODs tripled from 2020 to 2022 or something like that. Either way, it was out of control. It's right on the Pacific Northwest drug trafficking highway. You can look it up. Salem, Oregon. There are tons of busts that go on. And what I want to say is this. It's like, so when you look at those answers that they just gave to very simple questions, they didn't have it. They didn't have an answer to simple questions even. So then you have to start to wonder, well, why did the narrative push answers to those questions that they didn't have? And that's where I go and I question, well, here's a theory on maybe there was an ongoing investigation or a parallel investigation. Was it a sting operation? Was it a parallel investigation into trafficking and drugs? And if there's a parallel investigation, you have to understand the feds and the people that would do those, they're not stupid. They are very, very smart people. They know how to run these operations. They know how to make it look to the public. And it's also, again, while yes, maybe I've said WITSEC, maybe I've said PSYOP, maybe I've said ritual, maybe I've said exactly, this has exactly happened as they told us. We've tried to say and find ways and look at theories of how did this actually happen? If we go with what they're telling us, how did it happen? Okay, we've looked through all those lenses, but then you have to start to wonder, like, if any of those other things were what was really going on, you can't take any of the narrative for what they've told us anymore. And you can't even take the narrative for what they've told us actually happened. Do you guys realize that? You can't even take the narrative or the evidence for what we've been told. The investigators just said they don't have that. Do you guys realize how big of a deal that is? What we have been told about the case, the investigators just said they have none of it. So where I'm going is this, how dare you speak about this, like, this case routine? It's the most pathetic attempt of self-censorship I've ever seen. The Idaho 4 case is literally the most dissected, debated, and commercialized murder case in the world right now. There's documentaries, podcasts, bestseller books, nonstop media coverage. But the second that somebody questions outside the script, suddenly it's the families are grieving. You need to stop. It's like, get real. The world news is talking about this. The stream has clearly been labeled a theory. It's built off of submissions from the Hive minds. It's stated repeatedly, and I have a banner that runs across the bottom of the screen. I had taken it down for the YouTube video so that you could see the subtitles. It's like, I don't know if you are afraid that maybe you don't know and somebody's trying to expose inconsistencies that you don't want to acknowledge. And I'm speaking generally here to everybody who just tunes in. If you're new here, this is America, okay? And if the FBI ran a sting and the Moscow PD covered up fentanyl pipelines, then you should want to know that. You should want to have people asking questions. You should want to be a part of those debates if you're interested in finding those out. And if you're not, then so be it. And if you don't like it, so be it. But to, just always pull that card, it's like there's so many other families, as I started this stream with, that have gone through this same situation. Victim impact statements, having to look at their, family member's killer. And when they're even saying that it's odd, I mean, I've gotten a handful of those. So I'm not even trying to rant on it. I just don't think that people have looked into things that are right in front of our faces, in the court documents, in the questions, and can't wrap their head around that we might be watching something that we're not being told is happening, is what I'm saying. I look at the court documents, I look at the inconsistencies, I look at the narrative, I put a tinfoil hat on, And if you are new
They
here,
don't.
here's the. Oh, go ahead, Phoenix.
They just don't want you to question the narrative. They don't like it when it's not what they're shoving down our throats. When we question and we find things out, and then it's like, oh God, we got to go harder. They can't find out anything else. They can't. It's crazy.
Well, and so again, as you guys know, if you tune in here, it's made very clearly, and I'm not out to hate on any creator. I'm not here to, throw shade at people. Can I disagree? Yes. But you'll never hear me saying the things that other people have said that disagree with myself or anybody else who looks at this case this way. It's so odd. It's so odd. If you don't
Yeah.
agree with it, that okay, cool. That's fine. Like, again, I'm showing you the videos of them admitting that they don't have any of the evidence, and that still won't be enough. That's coming from the prosecutor and the investigators. They just admitted they don't have any of the evidence that we were all told in a narrative for years. Not only do they not have the evidence,
Correct.
they don't even know what to say, how to answer it. We don't know. We found nothing. There was nothing. And I want you to answer this very simple question. Why the hell would Bryan Kohberger take a plea deal? Why would he ever take a plea deal in that situation? And then you would say, well, why the hell would Bryan Kohberger ever agree to that plea deal? Who the hell says that they're guilty when they're not? You have to understand there are legal ways. As I had Ali Benevento on stream, so don't just take it from Birdie. Go listen to the stream with Ali Benevento, top lawyer in South Carolina. Explain in detail. She knocked it out of the park on how Bryan has legal things that he can still do, no matter what his plea agreement says. So, Phoenix, any closing thoughts?
Just keep being you, Birdie. I'm going to keep being me, and we're going to keep sharing what we find and question.
Right. So,
no doubt about it. Nothing's going to stop me.
Yeah. I mean, and look, I'm not even worried about stopping or doing whatever. It's my opinion. It's what I do. It's in my entire thought process on everything. Well, yes, it's been this case. Guess what? There's going to be another case. There's going to be another case we do this with.
Exactly.
And I don't care to try to convince somebody that's not willing to be convinced. If you're not willing to be convinced, there's no point in a conversation. And I say that with everything. And if you can't get past an initial disagreement in a conversation, what is the point of the conversation? So, I guess that's all I have to say about it. I do have a tinfoil hat conspiracy of the day. This actually comes from only available at not available. They didn't send me this, but somebody did send me this in the Hive Minds. This shit was nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure this is all a coincidence too.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry, Hive.
Like here at the top right, and
this was a good one.
Like here at the top right, and his album is named Red Fluid on the Dance Floor. Released in 1997, I see this inside the cover of Michael Jackson's album. Michael Jackson's arms form the hands of a clock showing 5 to 10, expressed in numbers 9, 11. This building is that building is this building is that building, this tower is that tower, but this tower is missing. Guess where the tower is? Look at the dust in the background. He's dancing on a chessboard, which reminds me to this picture with a crescent moon, just like here at the top right. And his album is named Red Fluid on the Dance Floor, which reminds us to the playground of those people. He's dressed in completely red, which is also a symbol for this here. Michael Jackson wears a black armband, which can be identified as a mourning armband. All of those mixed pieces are his story in the mix. But I don't think he means his story, I think about his story.
Damn. That is wild.
He's got some great videos. Makes sense. I remember when I saw it, I was floored.
Absolutely. Hive, like I said, the Substack and Discord links are in the YouTube channel bio. Please subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what you think about this stream. Let me know what you think about what we went over today with the evidence. And, you know, send that portion when I upload the shorter version tomorrow, or when it's up in the morning, because I always have these streams. These are under the live tabs for the full streams. And then I post a shortened version for people who don't have as much time. I try to do it about 30-minute clips. Now, send that to somebody who has never heard anything other than the narrative. And, you know, send me the Hive Mind Finds birdieBombshell00@gmail.com. Obviously get permission from the person of like the reaction or the screenshot, or blur their name out. I'm just curious, like, are they going to say, wow, that's really interesting, or wow, I've never heard that, or what? I'm shocked, because I bet a lot of them will be if they haven't heard anything other than what the news has said. So I've also posted exactly what this stream is, what this stream will continue to be. And with that, Hive, I hope you all have a great rest of your Sunday evening and have an awesome Monday to kick off the work week. I will be back on tomorrow with Devil's Advocates at 7 p.m. Central, and I will see you there, Hive. Cheers. Oh, and I'm going to be hopping in the Discord in about 10 minutes. So I'll be in that lounge. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Phoenix.
Bye, Birdie. Have a good night.
Yep.
Bye,
cheers.
chat.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new